just going to quickly go over graphing basic inequalities, okay? And for this, we really just have to understand a few key concepts. So first, let's get down some notes, all right? So the first thing we want to do is we want to understand when to use an open circle when we're actually graphing and when to use a closed circle or shaded, okay? Now, we're going to use open, which also means the value is not included. You'll also hear that. So if you hear not included, that just means an open circle. We're going to use that for anything like this: less than or greater than. All right, now I'll give you a quick way to memorize that in a second. The closed circle is going to be less than or equal to, so it actually has the line underneath it, and, well, or greater than or equal to. All right, now, here's how I'll basically have it memorized. I say, okay, if it's closed or if it's shaded in, that's going to mean there's a line under my inequality symbol, okay? So if there's a line under, I shade. If there's no line under, no shading. That's how I memorize it. That way, it can be clear in my head. So once again, I'll go through that. So no line underneath, no shading. Line underneath, shading. Okay, so that's how you can tell the difference between open and closed. And then this closed circle, you may also hear it said included. Basically, the values included in the graph. All right, so now we really just need to look at a few graphs to get down our directions, and after that, we're pretty much finished. So this should be a quick video. Let's start with x less than 3, okay? So if I want to graph that, let's just say I have a number line here, and I can pretty much number this whatever I want, but let's just say it starts at 0. So 0, that's not what I need. So 0, and then we'll say, what the heck am I doing? There we go. All right, so 0, then we've got 1, 2, 3. All right, then we've got, let's say, -1, -2, -3. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, x is less than 3. So if x is less than 3, the first thing we want to do is go to this value 3. And we're going to either make an open circle or we're going to make a shaded circle. It all depends on our inequality symbol. Now, if you look at your inequality symbol, you don't see a line. So no line means no shading. So no line, no shade. Okay? So we're going to make an open circle at 3. And now, our solution to this inequality is essentially all values for x that are less than or lower than 3. So which of these values, because we could extend this, we could even say, okay, this goes further to 4. So now, if you look at the right, if we go to the right, we're going to go to 4. If we go to the left, we're going to go to 2. Now, which one of those is less than 3? 2 is. So we want our arrow to point at all the values that are less than 3. So if 2 is less than 3, we want our arrow to point to the left. And now you'll see every single one of these values, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, all of those values are less than 3. And here's what I meant earlier when I said not included. Technically, 3 is not a solution to this inequality. Here's why. And this is why we write an open circle. If I rewrite this inequality and I substitute 3 in for x, I would say 3 is less than 3. Now, is 3 less than 3? No, 3 is less than or equal to 3, but it's not less than 3. So that's why 3 is not included in our solution. Our solutions are pretty much anything that's lower than 3 or less than 3. Okay, let's try another one. Let's do, how about x greater than -1? Here's a number line, and we'll just label this. We can start at 0 again. So 0, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. All right, so now let's go through this process again. If x is greater than -1, that means my solution has to start at -1. So that's where my first point's going to go. So let's go to -1, and we're either going to have an open circle or we're going to shade it in. Okay, now see if you can figure out which one it is. Well, look back at your inequality symbol. Once again, there's no line under this inequality, so there's no shading, which means our circle is open. Now, the past or the last example was greater or less than. Now we have greater than. So, once again, look on either side of -1. If we were to go to 0 and then to 1 and then to 2, are those numbers greater than -1? Yeah, they are. So that's the direction we want our arrow to point. We're basically saying 0, 1, 2, 3, all these values are solutions to this inequality. Like I can give you a quick example, 2. If I plug in 2 for x, I could say 2 is greater than -1. Is that true? Yeah, that's true. 2 is bigger than -1. Watch what happens though when I do -1. And this is why we don't include -1. That's why this circle is open, okay? It's open, and I'll show you why. If we say that x is equal to -1, here's what it would look like. -1 greater than -1. Is that true? No. -1 is equal to -1, but that's not greater than. So that's why this is an open circle, okay? I bet by now we can probably do the next one, so let's look at it. Let's say x is greater than or equal to 7. So this number line may be a little different. That's okay. We'll just start at 7. How about that? It'll probably make it easier. All right, let's just start at 7. So that's 7, which means to the right would be 8, 9, 10, and then to the left would be 6, 5, 4. Okay? So now, once again, this inequality says x is greater than or equal to 7. So we're going to need to start our first point at 7. So you have to decide, is it open or should it be shaded? In this case, it should be shaded. If there's a line, then you shade. So I always just think line under means shade. So that means that 7's included in the solution. I'll show you what that means in a second. So now we need to figure out, okay, which way do I point my arrow? Should my arrow go to the right or to the left? So for that, we need to look at greater than. So it says greater than 7, x is. So that means our solutions are all greater than 7. So would that be to the right or would that be to the left? It'd be to the right, because if you look, numbers greater than 7 would be 8, 9, 10. So that's the direction you want your arrow to point. Now, watch what happens when I plug 7 back in for x. Because 7 is a solution here. Watch what happens. 7 greater than or equal to 7. Is that true? Yeah, because now that we added the equal to part, 7 is greater than or equal to 7. It's equal to. All right? Now, I can also test some other points. Watch what happens if I plug in 9. Because 9, I've already said, is a solution, or this graph tells me 9 is a solution. Watch what happens when I plug 9 in for x. 9 greater than or equal to 7. Is that true? Yeah, it is. Here's how you know that you didn't do the problem correctly. Watch what happens if I plugged in 5. Okay, plugged in 5 for x. 5 greater than or equal to 7. Is that true? No. So if I would have accidentally made this shaded, or not the shaded part, the arrow point to the left, if I accidentally did that, I could just check my answer real quick and fix it. All right, let's do one more. So let's see if you can do this one real quick. X less than or equal to -5. I'm going to start my graph at, I'll just start it at -5 to make my life easier. All right, so -5. So to the right of that actually is -4. -4 is greater than -5. And -3, -2. All right, then less than -5 would be -6, -7, -8. All right, so now let's try to figure out where this graph, what it's going to look like. So x is less than or equal to -5. So the first thing we want to do is decide, okay, I know that my first point's at -5. So should it be open or shaded? It should be shaded because there's a line under my inequality, which means -5 is included in the solution. Now, it says x is less than or equal to -5, so what does less than mean in this case? Should my arrow point towards -6, -7, -8? Or should it point towards -4, -3, -2? All the values to the left of -5 would be less than, so it should point to the left. And once again, you could plug some of those in and just check your answers. But there's a quick overview of how to graph basic inequalities. Just remember, in review, this is one of the biggest or most often missed parts of this. If you see less than or greater than, that means you're going to do draw an open circle. Okay. If you see less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, that's a shaded